Hey, this is Yasuki Wolf, and welcome to another episode of the Manga Workshop series. Today, we're going to be demonstrating how to do KakeAmi. This is not a particularly good example of Kakiyami. This is something I tried to do with a sked pen the other day to try to get used to using it again, since I haven't touched it in like a year and a half. But I was having trouble getting the sked pen to have the right consistency and stuff, and I was trying to get used to too many things at once. So looking at it now, it's a little messy. So we're going to try to be a little bit neater this time. Now, when you're doing manga, there is no gray. Everything you do has to be completely black or completely white. So you can't do stuff like with a pencil where you can do a gradation by, say, having a dark area and then kind of like lightening your touch to make it a little lighter and lighter and lighter, and to do a sort of gradation like that. You can't do that with manga, because everything that's printed has to be black or white. So what that ends up meaning is that in order to make gradations, you do a lot of work with cross hatching, and that's for gradations and also for like textures, like to make different textures and stuff. So the Kakiyami could be used to make a specific texture in a particular part of your work, or it could be used for the background to make a certain type of ambiance, or it could be used for making gradations and so forth. I think so for today, first we're going to just show you how to do a straight up Kakiyami, and then after that we're going to do a gradation of a Kakiyami, which means, just in case you're not familiar with the terms, a gradation is a progression from dark to light. So this type of progression here is what we call a gradation. Let me see if we could zoom in a little bit more on this. Wrong way. Okay, yeah. So let's see. So first off, Kakiyami is I'm not completely sure what the direct translation would be. I believe Ami is net, so you're like drawing nets basically. I'm not sure what the kake part of it is, but basically, yeah, it's imagine it yourself. You're drawing a bunch of like fishing nets basically, and the basic idea behind it is that you have a bunch of squares that kind of run over each other and change directions. So I'm just kind of drawing a bunch of squares right now with my pencil. Once you've done it a lot, you probably won't need to actually do any pencil work. You can kind of just go right into doing it with the ink. But just to make it a little bit more understandable of exactly what we're trying to do with this, I'm just gonna put some. We gotta do the pencil work first, so you kind of get an idea of what what we're going for. But okay, let me clean this up a little bit and get rid of the gradation we had earlier. And we're gonna make this yeah. Let's do it on the other side. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. All right. So right now I'm just doing this on scrap paper. But let's define an area here that we want to have our Kakiyami at. Alright, so we're going to fill up this whole area with Kakiyami. And then, now within this area, we're going to have a bunch of squares that change direction. Periodically. I don't think that looks right. Put it maybe over here. Okay, maybe another square over here. Something over here. Doesn't have to have any real particular rules to it right now. Alright, so we just have a bunch of square kind of areas within a larger square. So now what we do, let's see. First off, I think just for the sake of practice, Oh, and this is one of the things that I forgot in the last video. Where did I put? Sorry, I forgot to mention this in the last video, but this is another thing that's going to come up that you're going to need a lot for supplies. Ruler. Sorry, I kind of completely spaced out on that one, but yes, you will need rulers. So I'm just going to go ahead and, for practice, we're going to use the 0.8 midi pen. If you don't have this ready yet, that's okay, but just for practice in Manga generally, when you're making a koma, the width of the line that you make a koma with is 0.8 millimeters. So that's why I use a 0.8 midi pen. Another thing also is when you're making komas in manga, you don't have to worry too much about crossing over like this, because that can always be fixed later with white ink or white out or corrective fluid or whatever you have. However, I'm probably not going to worry about it at all on this one, maybe, because since this is just scrap paper, I'm not going to worry too much about that. But so now you can just see that we have a general space outlined. Let's clean it up a little bit. Alright. Alright, so now we're going to switch to the 0.03 millimeter pen. And okay, so first thing we do is for each one of these squares, you're just going to make a series of lines like this, just lines that are equally spaced as much as possible. So you don't want to have like it going like that. You want them to have more or less the same equal space. And this is a good exercise too, just to kind of get used to, just for all around purposes, is to just practice drawing lines that are about the same length and about the same space from each other. Alright, so now we go into here and let's take this square here, and we're going to go 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so we got a number of lines going that way, and then go along another square. And when you do it, don't cross over try as much as possible not to cross over the lines that you already have in there. So, not sure how well you can see this, but I don't have this line going over past here, so they kind of hit that line and stop. Okay. And maybe start from this side now. Okay. And I'll speed this up a little bit so you can see as this goes along. Okay, so now we have just a bunch of lines going around each other. The next step, so we already drew lines going this way, so now we're going to go over again with lines going at 9-degree angles to the first lines that we had. So we're going to go over these parts again with 9-degree angles going the opposite, going along the other side of the squares. So now we have our little patches all lining up with each other. And looks like we kind of have the shape is fairly defined now, so I'm going to go ahead and delete, or sorry, I keep saying delete, but I'm going to go ahead and erase the pencil marks underneath now. If you were using a sketch pen, you probably would want to wait a lot longer before you erase, because it takes longer for the ink to dry. But I feel like these lines are pretty thin, so it's probably dried already, and it looks like it is. Alright. Then the next step, we've drawn lines this way, we've drawn lines this way, so now we make, I guess you do lines that are 45-degree angles to the last line you drew. So basically you have these lines here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that you can see on the camera. So, oh, or I would have if I had ink in my pen, but apparently I don't. Alright, this is the 0.81. See if I have ink in that. Yeah, alright, we're going to use, looks like I need to do some shopping myself. How about this one? Alright, there we go. Alright, yeah. So you have the lines going that way, right? And then you have lines going this way. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to make lines that go at 45-degree angles to that. So you're basically cutting this into triangles. So it would go along this way. And then go along this way, and then this way. So I'm not sure if you can see what I'm talking about, but you kind of are cutting each individual square in half. And then after we done that, we're going to go over it again, and the last time we're going to cut it the other half, so you make an X in the middle. But we'll get to that in a little bit. First, we're going to cut it in half this way. Okay, so now we've gone through and cut all the squares in half. So next we're going to go through again and cut them in half the other way. So going this way. Yep, wrong marker. Alright, so you're going to be cutting them this way next. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit more. Okay. Alright, so there we go. That's the basics. Now you can notice that I'm getting a lot of like I don't know if like how you say dirtiness along the edges here, and I feel like it's not quite as clean as it should be. So I'm gonna go over one more path just to kind of clean it up and kind of make things blend in a little bit better. But the basic net has been drawing. So now we're just going to kind of go through and kind of just wing it and see what you can do to kind of make up for, say, for example, if you have an area in between two nets. Like, let's just say that you have this empty space here that you want to fill in. You would go back through again and kind of just find areas that are empty and kind of fill those in, and just try to make sure that everything's blending together properly. So that's what I'm going to go through again on this phase to kind of clean it up. Okay, so I didn't really like how it was looking with the small MIDI pen that I had. It looks like this MIDI pen kind of leaves like a dark mark at the beginning, and it's kind of hard to keep the lines consistent. So I went over it again with my glass pen. You can use whatever pen you find works best for you, but this is basically what the Kakiyami looks like. You may be able to notice that the lines are a lot of the lines that I'm drawing are kind of coming outside of the coma, and that's something that I'll show you how to prevent in the next part. But just since this was just kind of like the practice on a scrap piece of paper, I wasn't really too concerned with that. So now we're going to come over, and now we're going to do a gradation with the Amikomi. So, sorry, not Amikomi. I'm sorry, that's an American comic book with the KakeAmi, and it's so it's going to be something similar to this. And I think we'll do it in maybe this area here. And so now, to explain how to prevent the lines from going outside of your coma, that is where we use the masking tape. So, in the scrap paper, you probably saw that there were some lines that were falling outside of the coma, and also just when you're drawing it, it's kind of annoying to have to like try to go very up to the edge but not go over the edge. It's not impossible. I mean, you could really just be very careful to make sure that you start from the edge and you go this way, and just make sure that you never cross over the lines, the komawari. But a much simpler way, and a thing that will save you a lot of time if you can get it, is masking tape. So you take the masking tape, and we put the masking tape along the edge of the coma, like so. And then put it on the other edge. Alright, there we go. And since it's masking tape, it's easy to peel off without destroying your paper. It has a very soft connection to the paper. It doesn't really like seal as strongly as like just regular tape would do. And what this allows us to do is now when we draw lines, and keep your scrap paper, because, well, particularly for me, since I'm using the glass pen, I have excess ink that I try to manage on the scrap paper first before I put anything on the actual page. But so what this is going to allow us to do now, if we got lines, yep, is we can now draw from the outside of the coma, moving into the coma. At least we should be able to. My ink's not quite flowing right. Give me a second. There you go. So now I don't have to worry about going outside of the coma. I can just kind of draw the lines freely and go onto the masking tape, and later on I can just peel it off and I'll have a perfect border. So right now I'm just trying to draw patches of lines in more or less a square shape. If you want to do the outline in, if you want to make the square outlines with pencil first, you can do that. But this is just another method. And I definitely still feel very rusty at this. This is my first time really attempting this in a number of years. And since we're going to do a gradation, I'm kind of keeping in mind that I want the lines to become less and less, how do I say? I want the lines to kind of taper off toward the bottom, so I'm going to have most of the concentration be at the top. Now toward the bottom, I'm going to make less complete boxes of patch squares. Are going back up to the top and filling in the areas that haven't been filled in yet. Alright, so there we got our basic first pass. There's a slight tapering off toward the bottom, and the rest just kind of follow the same patch strategy. So now we're going to go over the patches again, but this time we're going to be making 90 degree lines to the lines that we already have down. And once again, since we're doing gradation toward the end, we're going to let the lines kind of taper off a bit. Yeah, something like that. Okay. And repeat that again, this time at 45-degree angles. Okay, and once again we tapered off toward the bottom, and lastly we're going to go over again another 90-degree angles to the last ones that we did, making X's within our boxes. Okay, so there's our basic Kakiyami gradation. Just letting the lines taper off with each successive layer a little bit toward the bottom so that the bottom becomes lighter than the top. So we did the 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle, 45-degree, 45-degree, 4 different layers. But for a gradation, you could actually do more than that. So I'm actually going to take a little bit more time and put more layers on the top area to make the top area even darker. Alright, now I'm switching over to the Fude pen to make an area of complete black. But I'm going to make it progress gradually by still using crosshatch. Back to a little bit more of the glass pen. Okay, so a little haphazard at the end, but basically just adding as many as many lines as you want to get the right consistency of what you're going for. And my hands are crazy covered in ink right now, but I'm going to be careful and try to peel off this masking tape without touching with my ink-laden hands. Let's see what we can do. There's a nice edge there. Now this is going to be the beautiful one, because now we have all those black marks there. They're just going to go away. Like so. Alright, so there is our gradiated KakeAmi. So I got a little smudge here and on the side here, but oh, I know that was just dirt. Okay, cool. There's a number of smudges on here, but we can clean those up later. If you do have white ink, this is when you would use it. White out is also perfectly fine, but just take a smab of your white ink and put it on top of that smudge and let it dry. And that generally you can kind of see these. You could tell that this has been corrected when you look at it on your paper, but once it's been copied once and put through a print, it will disappear. So don't worry too much about it. But yeah, so there we are. That is Kakiyami. Next episode we may do a couple more exercises like this before we get into the nitty-gritty of using the sket pen and other tools. Till next time, yoroshiku.